Trump Musk scandal at USAID takes unnerving turn with vile leaked memo. So, guys, I'm back today. I read this great article in Newsbreak, believe it or not, which seems to be more right wing than left. It's an online news outlet, but this one's about an employees at USAID leaking all the terrible and disgusting things that are happening because of the funding freeze, people dying around the world, tons and tons of food just sitting there rotting when it could be distributed to needy people. But this is what Trump and Musk want. This is how they suppress the population. They're following the steps of Hitler. Trump didn't sleep with Mein Kampf next to his bed for years for nothing. He learned a little bit from it. But anyway, let's get into this article. I read this today. I really wanted to share it with you guys. Shockingly, it turns out that empowering the richest human being on the planet to maliciously and gratuitously heap additional misery on that planet's most poor, hungry, and desperate people might pose a niggling political problem to President Donald Trump. You think? You see, Trump thinks that there's not going to be another election. He's going to, take over everything and, grab all the power for himself. But we, the people, are not going to let that happen. Remember, call your senators, call your congressmen, and we're going to have to get out in the streets. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take a Korean style. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look what just happened in Korea a few months ago. The president declared martial law, and the people got out in the streets. They protested. The military didn't side with him, and he's in jail now, and they're still a free democracy. There seems to be a split in Trump world these days. Some seem to think Trump can get away with anything, no matter how devastating it is to the most vulnerable or how corrupt and abuse of power it represents. Others seem aware that there are limits, that at some point Trump world might push things too far and suffer a public backlash, and that this might actually matter. Oh, it's going to matter. A new internal memo circulating inside the U.S. Agency for International Development neatly captures this split. USAID, Agency for International Development. The Washington Post reports that the memo warns USAID employees not to communicate with the press about the shocking disruptions in humanitarian assistance that are being caused by the Trump-Musk attack on the agency, which are already producing horrific consequences. The memo said this transgression might be met with dismissal. So in other words, you're going to get fired if you leak anything. I mean, do they think that's a threat at this point when they're just firing people willy-nilly left and right, illegally or legally, whenever they want? The memo claims to be correcting a false narrative in the press about the disruptions to that assistance. It notes that Secretary of State Marco Rubio last month issued a waiver to life-saving humanitarian assistance, allowing it to continue despite the Trump-Musk freeze in agency spending. This has meant that this assistance has continued uninterrupted while warning recipients against any unauthorized external engagement with the press. Yeah, if I was working there, I'd be like, fuck you, I'm sneaking out all the information I can. This is highly disingenuous at best and mostly nonsense at worst, as the New York Times reports some senior USAID officials recently received an email explicitly directing them to hold off on approving some of this assistance, pending more directives from on high. What's more, according to the Times, while some of this assistance did continue due to Rubio's waiver, much of it has encountered serious obstacles. This assistance, which includes aid for life-saving food, shelter, and medicine, has gotten bogged down as USAID employees and groups that partner with the agency to distribute these things have struggled to access government funding streams halted by Trump. A judge has ordered the funds to continue. In one case, Musk claimed that the administration had restarted some disease prevention funding, but it remains frozen, the Times reported. The directive ordering USAID employees to refrain from discussing this with the press represents an unnerving turn in this saga, given how ugly and blatant it is. This is basically telling USAID personnel not to tell the truth about what they have seen. Jeremy Konyndyk, however you say that, a former senior USAID official told me. adding that this functionally commands USAID staff to get in line with the propaganda narrative. So they're telling the USAID staff to just lie and not tell the truth to the press, or don't talk to the press at all, because they don't want it to look bad on them. So maybe Trump knows that there will be consequences and there will be electoral losses because of this. Remember, guys, if you don't know, we have those three in April, I believe it is. There's three congressional elections coming up. I think two are in Florida and one is in New York for Elise Stefanik's seat, the one in New York. If we could win those three special elections, we could turn the tides in the House, and that will be a big deal to, putting Trump, putting handcuffs on whatever Trump and Musk can do from there on out. So if you're in those districts, even if you're a Republican and you don't like what's going on, go vote for those Democrats. Yet the memo also shows that USAID leaks are infuriating Trump officials precisely because they are exposing the horrifying consequences of the Trump Musk efforts to cripple this agency. In this context, let's also recall that USAID Inspector General recently released a report finding that due to the Trump Musk pause on funding, nearly $500 million in food assistance was at risk of spoiling. Spoiling, they're just letting it rot rather than give it to people who need it. I mean, meanness is the point. It's not, you know, an effect of what they're doing. It's the point of what they're doing. These are terrible people. That revealed an extraordinarily cruel and wanton attitude toward the global poor. And barely 24 hours after the USAID Inspector General revealed all this, Trump fired him. Of course he did. Probably illegally. He probably doesn't have the right to fire him. It's hard to adequately capture the absurdity and malevolence on display here. The whole function of IGs is to independently document waste, inefficiency, and corruption inside government. That's what the USAID IG did in documenting the mismanagement that put huge stores of taxpayer purchased food at risk of going to waste. This is exactly what IGs are supposed to do. But apparently, because it made Trump and Musk look bad, the IG got the axe. That's what it's all about, Trump and Musk. The fraud Trump or Musk keeps claiming he's fighting government is all just BS. He's the fraudster. Trump's the fraudster. I mean, the right wing is a bunch of fraudsters, but so are a lot on the left, but that's a story for another video. Here you see Trump world believing both that they are politically vulnerable to revelations about the misery they're inflicting on some of the world's poorest people. They were clearly stung by the IG's findings, and also that they can unabashedly fire the watchdogs who reveal it. They conspicuously did this right after the revelations hit, suggesting they lean toward feeling they can act with total impunity. Underscoring the point, Vice President J.D. Vance has tried to justify Trump's America First agenda as in keeping with Christian teachings about the proper hierarchy of obligations, with those outside our country being of lower priority. Vance apparently feels some pressure to morally justify Trump's agenda, yet that claim is so preposterous that it was denounced by Pope Francis, and it absurdly flies in the face of what we're seeing with USAID and other America First policies. Yes, Vance went out there and tossed some bullshit about how, Americans, Christian Americans come first, and he's a recent Catholic convert, and the Pope smacked him down. I'm not very religious, but thank you, Pope Francis, for putting JD punk ass bitch in his place. Which shows Trump, Musk, Vance systematically abandoning our obligations to the global poor with an indifference bordering on venality. Vance, intoxicated with hubris, seemingly thinks he can get away with saying anything. Yeah, that mascara wearing little emo bitch. This split is evident elsewhere. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt recently dismissed the idea that Trump Musk abuses of power constitute a constitutional crisis as a dishonest narrative, apparently revealing sensitivity about such perceptions. But on Friday, Trump board czar Tom Homan, another punk ass bitch, swaggered onto national television and joked that New York Mayor Eric Adams may face prosecution if he doesn't meet Trump's demand for corruption with his immigration agenda. So if you guys didn't hear about this, Eric Adams got his case dropped by Trump. You know, if you don't know, he's been running down to Mar-a-Lago like the little Uncle Tom that he is and kissing the ring there to get his case dropped because he was taking money from foreign governments to do favors as the mayor of New York, you know, one of the most powerful positions in the country. Definitely probably the most powerful mayor in the world. And now they they dropped the case out of nowhere with no substantial evidence to drop it or anything like that. And the lead prosecutor and I think five prosecutors have resigned because of it. And the lead prosecutor was a MAGA prosecutor, like a serious MAGA prosecutor that came out of the one of the big, you know, think tanks. Actually, the think tank, I can't recall the name right now, but the think tank that came up with Project 2025, she was right out of that mold, and she quit. This was such a blatant violation of the law because she knows it's going to come back at some point. Trump's not going to be around forever. This comes after Trump's Justice Department ordered career prosecutors to drop an ongoing, carefully assembled prosecution of Adams explicitly because Trump wants that full cooperation on immigration. This clear quid pro quo, if you don't know Latin, quid pro quo means you do this, I do that, or I do this, you do that, something like that. This for that, I think, is triggering resignations at the department, with some prosecutors speaking out powerfully in protest. For Homan to make a big joke out of this on Fox News while blow dried TV sycophants giggle in the background is the act of someone who doesn't believe he'll ever be held accountable for anything. We'll see about that. Not if I have anything to do about it. Meanwhile, on still another front, Levitt, who recently seemed eager to tamp down perceptions that we're enduring a constitutional crisis, unfurled her own big middle finger at constitutional governance this week. After the White House barred the Associated Press from the media briefing room, Levitt blithely confirmed that this is retaliation for the AP's refusal to describe the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America, per Trump's diktat. Musk, Homan, Levitt, and others inside Trump world are profoundly infected with arrogance. They appear unshakably certain that they'll never pay a price for any of this, no matter how cruel their policies or how flagrant their abuses of power. Yet here and there you can see glimmers of awareness peeking out of Trump world that their grip on power is impermanent and provisional. And yes, as far fetched as that might appear at this unsettling moment, they also seem dimly aware that this hold on power will ultimately be dependent on what American voters decide. Yeah, so it's going to be dependent on what American voters decide. If you sat out the last election because you thought, you know, I didn't like Joe Biden either. You know, I thought he was too old. I've never liked him. I always thought he was too far right for me, too middle, too right, too corporate. You know, like I've said on here a million times, I wish Bernie would have been president. Bernie was my guy. But Trump is a million times worse than Biden was. I don't care what any MAGA person says. Trump is evil incarnate, and he's an idiot. Well, maybe Musk is evil incarnate, and Trump's his idiot puppet or something like that. I don't know. We need to put a stop to this. Like I said, go, if you're in those three election districts that happen, those special elections, go vote. If you sat out the last election, it's fine. We forgive you. Go vote this time. Vote Democrat down the line. Get ready for the midterms in a year and a half. We're going to put these punks out of power. And then 2 years after that, we'll work on putting them in prison if Trump's still alive. Okay, guys, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe, comment, like, all that stuff. Appreciate everybody. See you later.